Hello, you're listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club, and you're most welcome.
Oh, hello. My name's Paul Carmichael, and welcome along to the Rambling Club this week. I've just stepped out of the shed for a couple of minutes from refilling the machine because, well, if you look through the window, there's Alan, my colleague, Alan Lear, and he's, well, berating President Slattery, our lovely Tony, somewhat. You see, Tony got a Ouija board for Christmas, and he's been causing some trouble around the village trying to raise the dead. So Alan's trying to have a word. We'd better go in and just see if there's been any sort of a resolution yet.
Unless we want to talk about Jeremy Beadle's grave as well. It was in his will that all would come. It was mechanical, and
a mechanical
midnight.
will?
No, it was a perfectly normal grave, but every night at midnight, like the last scene from Carrie, his withered hand would go like that.
The tiny little
Singing,
claw, yeah.
with the theme tune from Game from Laugh. And then we'd go back down. And that was the spirit of Jeremy Beadle, doing all these pranks.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't it Lenin who was
God came for a laugh.
he was resting in state in a kind of a glass coffin so people could troop by and visit him. But one of his arms was out of the coffin so that you could shake his hand on the way past.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you could do anything with his hand if you hated Lenin.
Well, imagine what Stalin did with it, yeah.
Did he really? I mean, Stalin whacks off on corpse's hand, sticking out from tomb. I'd read that passage. Wouldn't you, Al? You start all this filth, you know.
I certainly would.
Imagine the scissors might be in there. Slippity, slip away. But we're covering a lot of ground.
We certainly are, and we've barely even begun. So I think the only way to extricate ourselves from this current situation is to turn our attention to the magical bingo machine, give her a whirl, and see where we end up. Brown trousers on, gentlemen. Let's see what happens.
Tony's enchanted bingo machine. A curious contraption of cogs, levers, and glowing buttons that hums with ominous energy. This machine generates 3 completely random numbers. These numbers are fed directly into the Dewey Decimal System, the arcane reference system by which books and their contents are categorized. In this way, the bingo machine conjures from thin air a topic of conversation so enthralling, so wildly unexpected, that it leaves the members of the Rambling Club both bewildered and vaguely excited. Thus, another evening is saved from the brink of boredom, thanks to Tony's marvellous, possibly haunted and entirely inexplicable bingo machine.
Well, here we are in our next location, and the numbers are
5, 8, 4.
584. And that means the subject is... Oh, well, she's confused.
I'm who? What are you calling me, she?
Our little machine.
Oh, I thought you looked at me and go, well, she's confused. And we got into Polari again.
A little bit.
Paul turned into Hugh Paddock for no
Don't
reason.
you swack my mouthpiece.
Sure. No, but let's dolly the old eek on this. And
monocotyledons.
Monocotyledons. Alan, over to you.
Okay, well, obviously, the first thing you need to do, if you find a word like this that you don't recognise, is to break it down into its constituent parts so we can figure out what it is.
Excellent.
Mono obviously means one. Tony, take over.
Okay. It doesn't say Mario, does it? No, mono. But you see, there's a slight gap there. It could be moriocyclodons.
What would that mean?
Just a little.
Can we take a step back? What's the wider subject that this is a subset of?
We're in botany.
Right.
Monocotyledons.
Right.
Monocotyledons in botany.
They're a type of plant which doesn't like to be recognised by any botanist, and so the botanist which comes across it gets bored and they move on to daffodils because they don't want to waste any more time in it.
So David Bellamy is wandering along, all excited, and he spots one of these plants. How does it avoid his glance?
You can't spot it because it's not. It's a chemical, and so you wouldn't be able to spot it with the naked eye.
So it emits a chemical?
A what?
Does it emit a chemical, and that somehow stops you from noticing it because of its blandness?
Well, that happens, doesn't it? I mean, the scent of freshly cut grass is an alarm chemical that grass transmits when it's damaged, that warns other plants in the vicinity that something is going around damaging plants.
Oh, that's true. And you do, I mean, isn't it the case also that they can emit a very, very, very high frequency sound when they are damaged?
Yes, if you put a blade of grass between your teeth and blow, you can get a whistle. And not many people have that skill. However, if you put a monocotyledon between your teeth, the chances are you'll die.
Because it's emitting something?
No, because it's toxic and poisonous.
It's not got a lot going for it. I mean, it's boring to look at. It's poisonous and toxic, but
we're not back to Anne Widdecombe again.
So if David Bellamy does notice this, then basically his time is limited. If he notices,
I think he's died.
Would he?
Right.
He even have time to reach for his sword?
Don't speak ill of the dead.
Well, who's a gardener who's alive?
Alan Titchmarsh.
Alan Titchmarsh.
So if Alan Titchmarsh spots a monocotyledon,
he wouldn't know what to do with it either. He'd probably say, give us a good potting and a lot of love.
And that would ultimately result in his demise as well.
Yes, but I don't wish ill on him.
Alan Titchmarsh.
No. Botany is a very interesting and yet somehow dull subject, and I'm not sure we've got anywhere to go with this.
Well, I mean, gardening is something that I love.
How do we know
the
it's to
idea
do with
of
gardening? How do we know it's something to do with gardening?
Well, we've got botanical sciences, botany. These are all, it's all within plants. Monocotyledons.
Right, on either side, it's got, this might be up your alley, Al, gymnospermae.
No, I've got ivy up my alley. I don't have any gymnospermae.
You have ivy up?
That's presumably...
Should you see a proctologist? They grow very quickly, you know.
They do.
Only in areas that are disused, thankfully.
That'd be most of them.
Indeed.
What's the plant that grows so quickly that it was used as
Ragwort, Japanese ragwort.
Now, was it that was used as a torture method in World War II?
Bamboo.
No, it's not that quick.
Well, yeah, because bamboo wasn't that something where they could.
There is a species of bamboo that grows so quickly you can hear it growing.
Yes,
Yeah.
but not, if you wanted to torture someone, you need the implement quite close to hand.
Well, presumably, all you do is you tie them down over the bamboo and let it grow through them.
That's it, yeah.
No.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
Well, that's Japanese prisoner of war camps for you, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Not very nice places. Yeah. So, in terms of gardening, I do think gardening-wise, that's something that I like the idea of more than the practice. It's one of those things, you're right, because it's a lovely idea, but it's also quite dull.
Yes.
We have to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in this modern era of instant gratification, it's not, you have to wait 6 months to see if you've even planted the right bulb. It's not ideal.
No.
It's one of those things where I think people prefer the idea of having gardened. So you have a nice garden, but all the work's already been done.
So having a gardener, in fact, is what people like the idea of.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Or astroturf.
AstroTurf?
You don't need a gardener, you could spend all the money on drugs.
Yeah.
You could. And you could just line your AstroTurf.
Yes, unless you set fire to the AstroTurf. No one's tried that and smoked it.
No, that's very true. Well, would it melt, though,
It's kind of a
astroturf?
plastic, isn't it? I imagine you get quite an acrid smoke.
Well, there would be a hell of a fume from it. But like that, who was the newsreader who, he was there when they burned a huge pile of heroin somewhere out in the desert in the Middle East. And of course, he got so high off from it that he just couldn't complete what he was doing at all.
Yeah.
Which I think was then repeated in Drop the Dead Donkey, as I recall. They borrowed that.
They used a similar idea in the film Saving Grace. Martin Clunes plays a doctor in it, and a woman tries to. Brenda Blethyn's character, I think, is widowed, and she can't afford to maintain her property, so she starts growing cannabis as a sideline. And in the end, she repents of her sins and burns her entire cannabis crop. So, of course, her entire village is high off the fumes. And towards the very end, you just see Martin Clunes doing an interview into camera, and he says, "Of course, as a doctor, I could never recommend the use of marijuana except for a specific medical thingy."
Right. I also want to say I was in a few episodes of Coronation Street once, and you know when you joined, because of you mentioned Martin Clunes in the series, and you were talking about marijuana and grass and burning astroturf and the rocket shaped on churches and whatever that bloody word we couldn't pronounce. Or indeed, frankly, weren't interested in it, nor were our listeners. No. Yes, I'm saying, and you never know. You join Coronation Street, you don't know how long it's going to last, and they couldn't figure out what to do with my character. I think it was a good action. It was potentially a good character. I think I played the boyfriend of an alcoholic, but the story wasn't going anywhere. And please, any listeners or any listeners who knows anyone who worked on that particular episode, the very last scene of my very last appearance in Coronation Street, we're all trundled up into this room above a shop, opened the door, and it was a cannabis plant a cannabis growing area, quite extensive, and camera cut to the four of us going, oh, never mentioned again. Because I thought that was quite an important image. It was never mentioned again.
You'd think that someone harvesting cannabis in the middle of Weatherfield, they were going to take that storyline somewhere. Nope. And I'm really mystified it. Back to plants in soap operas, which mystify me. I can't think of many examples of plants in soap operas that do that.
No. Films, yes.
Films,
Yeah.
there was piles of them, yeah.
Didn't Peter Cushing have a rose named after his wife?
Helen.
Yeah,
he was. He talked about that. Well, the way that it happened is actually quite an interesting one, because after she died, and he was devastated when his wife died, and when he was recounting the story when they named the rose after her.
But they both lived to quite a long age.
They did, yeah. He outlived her, I think, by about a dozen years.
Yeah, but she was quite old anyway.
Yeah, she was.
So my point is, he was devastated, but it can't have come as much of a surprise.
It wasn't a surprise,
so
however.
That's cruel, but it's quite funny. Especially with such a lovely man, he'd have laughed at that.
Well, yes, he would. But what he did that night, apparently, when she died, is he decided the best thing to do
Was
join
just
her.
one more time, the old times.
I don't know if he did that.
Oh, I know. Christopher Lee told me.
Oh, well, it's fact then. Okay, fair enough. And we can't defame the dead, can we?
No,
We're
we
all
can't
good.
blame the dead.
But that night, apparently, he just ran up and down his stairs at home, seeing if he could induce a heart attack.
Yes.
In himself.
In himself, and it didn't work. So in the end, he came up with this idea of having the rose named the Helen Cushing. But the way it came about is he wrote to Jim'll Fix It, and Jim fixed it for him to have the Helen Cushing rose named.
Right. What was your phobia?
Acrotomophobia.
Is that what we're talking about?
Acrotomophilia.
The phobia of getting Jimmy Savile,
I think
the notorious paedophile, to come round to your house and I'll fix it. I know, but
You sound like the Righteous Brothers there. If that Jimmy Savile came round here with his King Edward, oi, Savile, no! No, because of course a phobia is an irrational fear or hatred of something. So being afraid or hating Jimmy Savile is perfectly rational and therefore is not a phobic reaction.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that's you can cut that out. It's a bit. Well, we don't shy away from anything on this podcast.
Well, no.
Apparently not.
No. Anyway, didn't they fill his grave in with concrete as well, just to make doubly sure, I think? Is that right?
Yes.
I know they took his headstone down, didn't they? Because he had a big, elaborate, ostentatious...
Yeah, it looked like the end of a bed. It was beautiful. It was huge, and looking out to sea. But yes, that was taken and broken up.
Yes, because it was only going to be vandalised to bits anyway.
Of course it is. But they weren't sort of stonemasons that just replaced it with a big cigar dripping in KY.
The most vandalised grave in Highgate Cemetery is apparently Karl Marx's grave, which seems somewhat unfair given that Jeremy Beadle's buried in the same place.
Yes.
Well, here we are, another location and another ramble. So the numbers are
8, 2, 5,
825, and 825 is English speeches.
Oh, we like an 8.
We do like an 8. I love a speech as well. I am fond of a speech.
Completely over to you.
Oh,
Although, may I interrupt?
Yeah.
Why do we like an 8, given that this is so, unpredictable and we don't know what's coming up?
Well, the 8s are all literature, or around literature.
Oh, I wasn't
Literature and
told
drama,
this.
yeah.
Oh, why wasn't I told this?
Well,
I don't. You should have been informed.
We've learned it through experience. It's not something we knew in advance.
No.
But
No.
Gosh, your head really is big, isn't it? We've only done a couple of these and you've learned it through experience. Or are you saying I'm really thick?
yeah, yes.
English speeches.
I'm not playing anymore.
Oh.
No, English speeches. Much over to you, Al.
English speeches, right. Favourite speech, I think, in Shakespeare. Oh, well, it's a speech that was made probably really very famous by Richard E. Grant, but not in the play. The speech at the end of Hamlet. At the end of,
With Nail and I.
at the end of With Nail and I, where he gives this wonderful speech from, I think, Act 2, when he's talking to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, where he describes... Essentially, it's the only time I've ever read what I would say is an honest, written truth about what it feels like to be depressed, which I have of late, but wherefore I know not lost all my mirth. And then he lists all of the things that might bring you joy, but to him it means absolutely nothing. With the line, well, what is this quintessence of dust? I love that quintessence of dust. That, for me, in terms of a speech, it carries so much weight. And I think for the actor, as an actor, you know how to play it. It's so well written. It's what we said before about stage directions being hidden within it. You get this point where he has to... Obviously, you're talking about this vast canopy above you, so you're going to be looking up to the heavens. And then all of a sudden, you contemplate your own humanity, and you're looking at your hand, and then what a piece of work is a man. And you can move your hand slowly as you do that. It's genius, that I adore. I adore Hamlet, but that in all of English, that's my favourite speech. And it's so satisfying to play. And it's very, very difficult to fuck it up. You've got to work hard to get it wrong, I think.
That's how good it is.
What's that fantastic line that it's something like, I could be bounded within a nutshell and consider myself the lord of infinite space, but for the fact that I have bad dreams.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And it's the way that these emotions, huge emotions, which I don't think you can sum up simply. You know, I don't think that, say, for example, the feeling of depression, I don't think you could say, well, it feels like this. I think it takes something a bit more expanded to really demonstrate and give an actuality to it. I think, you know, it needs that passion behind it. And that's absolutely there. I mean, there's so many speeches there. Obviously, I go for Shakespeare, and then you think of all the other people who've made remarkable speeches. Churchill, immediately, you think of in World War II, with those rousing speeches, which he probably recorded in the nude. Because didn't he used to like wandering around Downing Street in the nude?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Not making speech. I think he was pondering
Oh, right.
That he felt that when he was really thinking about something terribly important, he had a cigar. Yeah. I think which historian, A.N. Wilson, I think talks about that. You know, speeches, or the speeches don't have to be long. They could just be a couple of words. I don't know why they sprung into my mind, but this is the point of our ramble. When Victoria Wood died, one of my heroes of comedy, it was Julie Walters' house in the country. I've worked with Julie Walters before, I won't go into that now. And she was reported, there were hundreds. You know, what have you got to say? What have you got to say? Eventually they handed her a microphone, and the words she said were few. And she said, "I'm sorry, I cannot say anything because I am too heart sore to speak." And then just went in, and they all left her alone. And instead of a long speech, and just those two simple words, "I'm too heart sore."
Heart sore. That's beautiful, isn't
Yeah.
it? And it does sum it up perfectly, that idea of being broken-hearted.
Yes.
Which again is something that is given voice to, you know, beautifully in older writings. These days, not so much. We seem to have abandoned the speech. I think it's rather sad. I do like a good speech.
Yes.
I suppose it's a naturalism thing, isn't it? People don't really deliver monologues in real life.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, well, Ibsen loves an internalised monologue, of course, but it's not quite the same, because the point is to express the anguish and to make the audience question, whereas, of course, when we're talking about Shakespeare, it's literally to say to the audience, this is how I feel, in multiple different ways to ensure the whole audience gets it. Also because, of course, to go on stage and perform naturalistically was illegal. You could be done for doing that, for actually going on stage and holding a mirror up to nature. Well, there were fines for actors for doing that if you were too accurate. So rather than actually just internalising it, as I imagine they would have wanted to, we think it's a bit very modern now, but I think any actor, you would think like the character. But rather than that, instead of actually feeling it, they had to say it. And that's why, of course, people would say, you know, they wouldn't say, "Did you go and see the play?" They would say, "Did you hear the play?" It was all about the audio. You would never say, "Did you see it?" Did you hear it?
Yes.
And in terms of speeches, what you would often find is that someone would walk out, and this is more Georgian theatre time, but someone like David Garrick would walk down stage at Drury Lane and he'd give a magnificent speech, and then he'd step back into the gloom and the applause would keep going, and then he would step back forward and he would do exactly the same speech again. And Garrick was renowned for that, but it was sort of like a best of for the audience. Then they wanted to hear that tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So Garrett would give it to them, and then he'd go, "Oh, and have it again, once again," and could make Macbeth an incredibly long play.
When it is the shortest. Do we think anyone messed about? We talked about this before. Are there any digital fingerprints of anyone else in that play? You're the expert.
Macbeth, yes, more than most.
Now, if I remember correctly, there's an entire speech by Hecate in rhyming couplets, which
Yes.
is considered not to be Shakespeare's,
Right.
largely on the grounds that it's a bit shit.
It is a bit shit. However, what the belief is, and you think about the time it was written, who it was written for, King James, that essentially what Shakespeare used in the original work is he's using all of that sort of knowledge from Warwickshire and all of those folk tales, but what he was using was deemed to be quite real in terms of witchcraft. That wasn't allowed. So that's why you get something that's a bit more simplistic. I mean, would Shakespeare, if you think about this quintessence of dust, would he also have written some of the things that the witches say? Maybe not. Probably that's Hemmings and Condell, when they came to write it all down and came up with this slightly altered version of it, I think, yeah. But Macbeth's a fascinating play.
It really is.
Yeah. And again, a gift to an actor, I think.
To a couple of actors, because Lady Macbeth is one of Shakespeare's strongest female characters, I think. A lot of the other plays, Hamlet, maybe, if you look at Desdemona and Gertrude, Othello with Desdemona. Did I say Desdemona? I meant Ophelia.
Yeah, Ophelia.
And Gertrude. Desdemona and Othello. Nothing much parts. But Lady Macbeth...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Throughout, but then, of course, just gets the sad thing of dying off stage.
Off stage.
She deserved a death.
Yeah.
She really did deserve a death. But, no, I mean, Ophelia, a brilliant part, but essentially 4 scenes, one of which you're dead for. Desdemona... A bit wet, really.
Yeah, nothing much at all. Really.
There's nothing really meaty to play with Desdemona.
Who else could be dissing Shakespeare?
Juliet, of course, is a good part. And the nurse is a good part.
The nurse is an excellent part. The nurse who would have originally been played by Will Kemp. The great physical theatre clown, yeah. Which is, it's fascinating once you get to look at the structure of these things. So King Lear, for example, there's a reason why Cordelia is in Act 1, Scene 1, and then buggers off to France and isn't seen till Act 5. And that's because Will Kemp played Cordelia, and then Will Kemp has a quick costume change, becomes the fool, up until Shakespeare needs Cordelia to come back, does a costume change, and that's why the fool is rather forgotten about, and then, and my poor fool is hanged, is added in, because, oh shit, I forgot to do anything. Oh, he's been hung.
Well, that's like Acorn Antiques.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
When they're doing Acorn Antiques and going back to Julie Walters again, and when she comes on set, could you hover with my veg? And then, darling, there's been a slight change of the script. We haven't got a film box. Haven't got a film box? No problem for me. I am an actor. Oh, so you have got a film box. So, what do I get? All this fussing, these cameras come in and out like lawn mowers. What do you want? And then she goes into... and then the thing is, it's the principle of what you were saying about he goes off. It's like saying, I don't know, where's my Lord Macbeth? He's off and about at the moment, you know. We'll find him. He's just doing a tour of the grounds. He likes to keep up with his estate. I blame those witches. And all the time he's coming back from the kebab shop over the road. Yeah.
I'm trying to work out if that means Lady Macbeth doubled up as Macduff, and if that's why she died off stage. So she could be in the fight. The actor playing her could be in the fight scene.
That's controversial.
Oh, it's quite possible. I mean, Macbeth is a big company of characters. However, the company size was only ever 14 max. So yeah, it's quite possible.
I don't recall that character.
He's in one of the lesser-known historicals.
What, Max?
Max, yeah. He appears a bit like at the Fortinbras at the end of Hamlet, does absolutely nothing, turns up, gets the final speech. Well, here we are, final ramble time. The numbers are...
7, 5, 7.
757, and the subject is... human figures and their parts. I think we're in sculpture.
Right.
I think. But human figures and their parts is the subject. Well, the Romans didn't like parts. On statues to be overly large, did they? Which I think we've said before. They preferred certain parts to be smaller and less animalistic. But of course, then the Victorians, when rediscovering Pompeii, etc., didn't like any parts and went about defacing statues and murals and removing anything that didn't fit that Victorian ideal of what the classic was. I think there's a part of me that thinks that they thought it was very Claudius and it was posh people in togas, basically.
Yes.
I looked this up for the show notes, and apparently there's a replica of Michelangelo's David in the Victorian Albert Museum that was there when Queen Victoria was alive. And apparently they kept a fig leaf in reserve for when the Queen was visiting, which they would add to the statue for her benefit.
Wow.
I thought it was marvellous because she had 9 kids, so it can't have been much of a shock to her.
She had a very, very busy
big
sex
penis.
life.
Yes, she did. She did.
It was called John Brown, wasn't it?
I think it was.
Yeah.
Yes, a kilt of extreme length when they used to go jockeying on the grouse hunt. But also the thing is about, say, the Greco-Roman statues, which were covered up in fig leaves. In the Vatican, they only, what they did, I've forgotten the reign of which mad pope it was, they didn't just delicately cover them up with some foliage. They got loads of, I don't know, perhaps Irish gangers, like my dad was when he came over, to the block. They went round these huge sledgehammers and knocked all the penises off, and they left them like that to not only because to cover up something up is also in it. Oh, I wonder what's behind that.
Yes, there's an element of forbidden
titillation.
Yeah.
Yes, whereas to actually vandalise and knock off human genitalia, there's nothing there at all. But also there is a threat of extreme divine violence should you concentrate on human reproduction or sexual activity.
And it happens constantly, doesn't it, with art? I mean, we get that there, but then you think more recently, the Taliban, when they blew up the Banyan Buddhas.
Yes.
Beautiful and thousands of years old, but no, they had to go.
It's got a long history. It was quite common amongst the Egyptian pharaohs to deface the statues of your predecessors if they were from a different lineage. And of course, if you defaced their grave statues, that was a religious thing that was dangerous for the soul as well. There was a god, not a god, well, the pharaohs were gods, of course, but there was a pharaoh who basically started his own cult. Because, as you know, the Egyptians were polytheistic. They had a pantheon of gods. And one of the pharaohs said, no, there's one god. His name is Amon-Ra. He's the god of everything. Fuck off. And after
Did you really say that in English?
No, yeah.
Oh, because the hieroglyphic system is so complicated.
He was a great
and
polyglot.
lush, and then so he was at the height of his knowledge.
Yeah,
and he just
great
said,
polyglot.
Look, a great polyglot,
Yeah.
and even you English swear slang.
Yeah. And after his death, the original Egyptian religion was restored, and they went around smashing all the statues he created of himself and to Amon-Ra. Fun fact that may or may not be true, by the way, while I'm banging on about Egyptians, it is alleged that Ramses II built more statues to himself than any other leader in history until the 20th century, when he was overtaken by Stalin.
Wow.
No.
Yep.
You started it off with the words fun fact.
Yes.
And always when people say fun fact, that's going to be the dullest thing in the world.
Fair point.
No, my point is you completely destroyed that. I didn't know. Did you know where that was coming from?
I didn't know it was going to be Stalin.
Stalin.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord.
Makes sense, though, I suppose.
Other than I doff whatever hat I'm wearing.
But with statues, I think it just sort of goes to show, doesn't it, how much more liberal and advanced people were 2,500, 3,000 years ago. There's a wonderful statue that was exhibited quite recently, and Mary Beard talked about it in that wonderfully descriptive way she did.
Yeah,
she talks about the fact that this is hidden away from the rest of the exhibition, and it's got warning signs as you approach it saying that you could be triggered by what you're about to see. And you go in there and you're met with what Mary Beard called a small statue of Pan fucking a goat.
Yep.
And the thing is, though, and you've got these warnings to just be really, really careful, but then she goes on to describe it and how it's got this loving look on its face. And she says, and the most wonderful thing is that he's taking it in missionary position. So the goat looks quite relaxed and happy and is lying on its back, but that was deemed to be like, for an audience in the 21st century, that could be too much. And she said it was down to the fact of how lifelike the genitals were.
Right. And so the goat was on its back, and also made more, I guess, sensual by the fact that the goat, in one of its cloven hooves, had a Sobrani cocktail.
There you are.
Yes,
the goat's
smoking.
perfectly happy.
Finish when you want. I'm here all night. Kiss if you like.
Well, apparently to the Romans, this statue was a piece of satire. It was a joke
Right.
that you would exhibit, and people would have thought it was hilarious. But now we actually have to have warnings in place that the statue could offend.
Yeah.
Which is sad, really.
So we were not just about statues, it was the human figure.
It was. Let's have a little look. So
human
it's
figure
human
and
figures
its
and their parts.
And their parts.
And their
Right, we
parts.
wandered off slightly.
Yes.
And their parts. Right. Well, if you get a beautiful woman, I love Henry Moore, do you? But
He was a beautiful woman.
he was a beautiful woman until he knocked himself out of it with stone, and then he just looked like a big stone with holes in it. Oh God, I did a film once called Drowning in the Shallow End, and it's still available, and it was part of it was set in a stately home, there was a swimming pool, but they had one of the most expensive Henry Moores, and you know they're invaluable anyway,
Yes.
and they're astonishing to watch because even you can tell that it's a human figure because not just because of the holes, because of the fluidity, the shape, and you can just tell what he's done with it to make it startling. Even someone I noticed that because in one of the lunch breaks, or we were filming someone else, there were parties you could see Henry Moore, and people who knew nothing about Henry Moore, and it was a human figure in sculpture, were just open mouthed because they knew intuitively that they were seeing something really special. And even when it was explained to them, they said, oh, it's just wonderful. Oh, but the naughty thing was, while we were having lunch, the DOP and the thing is, just for the shot, because the sun's going down on the hill, can we move it 3 feet? And they did. And myself and Paul McGann, and I think it was Phoebe Nichols, we saw them doing this, and we both just put our hands to our mouths going, are they going to put it back? Because they could be fined £1 billion, and by the estate, they would be attacked in the street by. The human figure
And their parts, yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, a little link here, I suppose, would be that those monolithic pieces by Henry Moore
on Easter Island. Well, he was trying it out there.
Well, it's a modern-day equivalent in a way, isn't it? I mean, I remember there's a Henry Moore in Edinburgh, and the way that the sun falls on it means that basically the shape appears to sort of shift and form as the sun moves around it. Well, thinking back to those more ancient monoliths where, on Midwinter's Day when the sun shines directly on the altar stone at Stonehenge, are they our modern-day monolith equivalents, do you think? Not specifically Henry Moore, because there wouldn't be many of them about. No. But is that our equivalent now?
The temple at Abu Simbel, which was built by Ramses II, was built to celebrate his birthday. And it was built by the ancient Egyptians in such a way that twice a year, on the anniversary of his birthday and the 6-month anniversary of his birthday, the sun shines directly down the centre of the pyramid, the temple, into the Sanctum Sanctorum, the Holy of Holies, where there are 4 gods at the end. Osiris, Horus, Isis, and Seth, the god of darkness. And the sunlight illuminates Osiris, Isis, and Horus, and leaves Seth in darkness.
Oh.
Beautiful. And Abu Simbel was endangered when they built the Aswan Dam, because it was at the foot of the mountain where they were going to build the Aswan Dam. So UNESCO took it apart and put it back together at the top of the mountain, and then built an artificial bit of mountain behind it so it still looked the same. They flooded the mountain below, created the Aswan Dam, and UNESCO put Abu Simbel back together so well that one day after the day it would have done in Ramses II's day, the sun comes straight down the middle and illuminates 3 of the 4 gods in the Sanctum Sanctorum. The guide who told me that called it the miracle of UNESCO.
One that is just wonderful, Al. I don't mean to bring it down, but that, because of that magnificent, intelligent way of thinking, we now have Dan Brown. It was okay when it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. That was exciting, and also based on the kind of thing which probably you were referring to, if it was accurate. And you just proved that that kind of alignment and geometrical, mathematical, and ethereal and religious precision, when they all come together, and now we have Dan Brown, and as long as the woman's tights run together when she's running towards, we must get the fifth cross, which is upside down under a McDonald's, and then we go to Wendy's or Greg's, and then we can find,
I'm going to take my life in my hands here and try and play devil's advocate on the side of Dan Brown. Just briefly, is there not a possibility that because Dan Brown is writing this turgid load of nonsense, that it might inspire people to read more widely and research and possibly encounter better works? Is that possibly the use for Dan Brown?
Of course it is. And also, he's in... no, I have nothing personal against Dan Brown at all.
The law of unintended consequence.
Yeah. Well, it's just like... Andrew Lloyd Webber, in his works, got more ordinary people who've never heard of musical theatre, never been to and it's spread around the world, to go. Dan Brown, perhaps in translation, probably better in translation, I don't know, but he would have inspired loads of people to go on reading, like the Harry Potter books.
Yes.
You know, no one could possibly state, could they, if they were of sound mind and brain, that they were terribly well written.
No.
But the universe she created, obviously borrowed from, I have to be careful with that word, don't I? But obviously an homage, yes, not a nod to the Norse series, Christian series, C.S. Lewis, everything else. But she got the formula damn right.
Oh,
it was
spot on.
just a shame that none of the kids in it could act.
Terry Pratchett was asked because his books had a unseen university, a university of wizards in them. And when J.K. Rowling first really hit, he was asked, well, do you feel J.K. Rowling's ripped off your idea? And he said, it's not my idea. The idea of a school for witches and wizards is one of the oldest in the English literary tradition.
Quite.
But the thing about the Harry Potter books is that they're derivative, but they're fine. They're okay, but they are meant to be a gateway book. You're supposed to go on and read adult books after you've read the children's books. If you stop at the children's books, then we have a problem.
You know that she was on the news quiz. She was sadly no longer with us. Elaine Smith, satirist. I think she was on Grumpy Old Women, and her first thing, I'm grumpy about adults who read the Harry Potter books. And I really got where she was coming from. I was in an age of a program. I was dying as usual. I don't know what it was. It was either East End Hospital or Casualty in Egypt. Anyway, every hospital program I died in, but there was one that the chief scientific advisor was there, sitting on a big stool, reading about the seventh in the series. No, it would have been. I think they would throw a Harry Potter title up.
The Deathly Hallows.
No, it's before that.
Goblet of Fire.
It was thank you, Art. It was the Goblet of Fire, and he was reading it so intently, and I thought, hang on, right, you are being paid an awful lot of money. You're clearly very clever. You've been chosen out of hundreds to look at all these various hops which are going on and give advice about how to make. And that's right. And there was me having my sternum broken by a nurse extra. And, we needed someone to show him how to do it. I'm elaborating on something because you just, as you always do, you just reminded me. Before... That's right, because there was the extra nurse breaking my sternum. Then Harry said, no, Charlie, lovely Charlie.
Oh!
Tony said, no, don't do that, you'll kill
Derek
him.
Thompson.
Derek
Yes.
Thompson, you'll kill him. And then, but that's right, it was before the plastic chest was brought in that he was suddenly torn away from his copy of The Goblet of Fire. And I remember he came over and he had it in his hand and his face was, oh God, I've got to do this for all I know. I've got to do my job. I've got to go back to reading this. And so he said, yeah, you do that, you do that, you do that. Okay, let's go. Oh, so I thought, right, there you are. And he went back to reading his copy. I don't know what tangent got us onto that.
They published the Harry Potter books with dramatic black and white photos on the covers so that adults wouldn't be embarrassed to be seen reading them. They did alternative editions for adults.
My God, I've got one of those, Al. It's the very first one, and it's got a black and white photo of an old steam engine.
Yeah, that's right.
That might be worth
I'm always
30 quid
reminded-
or something.
Could
mightn't
well be
it?
worth a bit of money.
Could be. But yeah, I'm always reminded that bit in the Stuart Lee's comedy vehicle thing, the bit where he's talking about books. And he says, people say to him, Stu, have you read the Harry Potter books? And he says, no, but I have read the complete works of 18th century visionary and poet William Blake. So fuck off.
So after that long ramble there, we find ourselves back into the body of the presidential shed with a roaring fire and a hot cup of tea. So, Tony, did you enjoy today's
I
ramble?
really did.
And we thank you for listening as well. We hope you enjoyed this week's ramble of the rambling... for fuck's sake.
This
Every
episode
week.
was brought to you by dyslexia.
Yes,
No, you can't. No, sorry.
every week. Right, here we go.
Yeah.
And we'd like to thank you... That was lank there, right? Here we go. And we'd like to thank you for listening, and we hope
No,
that
you actually sounded, we'd like to wank. We were talking about phonetics.
We must be careful.
We'd like
Yes.
to wank your lank.
The rambling
And
club.
then, Paul.
Right. Well, we'd like to thank you too for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this week's meeting of the Rambling Club.
As you know, the club meets every Friday. But if you'd like to get in touch in the meantime, here's how you can find your fellow members.
We have Tony's official website, and that is at www.tonyslattery.com, and you can get in touch with us via the contact form on that website.
We're at Twitter at Slattery Live. Use the hashtag TSRC to discuss this week's bewildering topics.
I am on Twitter also. You can find me at Paul Carmichael V.
And Tony also has a Facebook group. I've got all Lancashire just for this episode. Tony also has Facebook group at www.facebook.com/group/TheTonySlattery.
Oh, and also Tony is on Instagram. You can find him at Tony_Slattery_official.
And if people want to join the Rambling Club themselves, how do they go about that?
Well, you can head to www.patreon.com/Slattery/Slattery Live. And there, for as little as £3 a month, which does enable us to keep making these podcasts, of course, for you. For as little as that, then you get a podcast every month that nobody else will ever hear. You can get in touch with us for Ask Me Anythings. There's all sorts there. It's well worth taking a look, isn't it?
Why not compare your forward slaffs with your fellow members?
Why not?
So please do get in touch by any of those methods. We would be delighted to hear from you.
If you've been affected by any of the comments,
Tough.
So Tony will be back to lead us on another ramble next week. We hope you'll join us again. So until then, it's a goodbye from myself, Paul Carmichael. It's a goodbye from Mr. Alan Lear.
Cheerio.
And it's a goodbye from the club president, Mr. Tony Slattery.
goodbye and thank you for listening.
Hey, lovely. Good stuff. Shall we...
For listeners, I'm just going to urinate. Carry on.
You have been listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club with your host, the club president, Tony Slattery. It was accompanied by E. Stephen Fry as the voice of the bingo machine. Tony was assisted by E. Paul Carmichael and Alan Lear. The music was composed and performed by E. Michael Lavsley and Andy Frizzle. Sealy voices are by E. Michael Lavsley and the show's concept is by E. Paul Carmichael. Our producers are Stuart Morris and Alan Dybing, and the show's series producer is Eric Allaire. Our executive producer is Chris Castle, and the series executive producer is Mark Strickson. Tony Slattery's Rambling Club is a Fanfanidal production.